In Wichita State, coming from Wilkins Stadium. Starting lineup for the Jayhawks, brought to you by Groundworks. Olivia Bruno was originally slated to be the designated player, but she has been moved to the circle. Kansas a season ago ended up winning 10 Big 12 games, most since 2001. Different story this year, but it was certainly a big-time season for Kansas in 2024. Inside the circle for the Wichita State Shockers, no late change for Ava Sliger. Christy Bredbender had her penciled in from the get-go. The freshman set to face Kansas for the first time. These two teams had met before this season, but Ava Sliger did not make an appearance in that game against Kansas. Starting pitching, brought to you by Reese Nichols. Backing up Ava Sliger. This has been a standard for the graphics department. The only thing that they've had to change the last 30 games has been who's been starting inside the circle. Everyone has been in a similar spot for a long time. Gabby Scott behind the dish. She actually had a breakout performance against Kansas up in Lawrence. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. Sammy Hood made some incredible plays at the shortstop position. A great play against Kansas City. And she had some great plays in the series winning at Charlotte. Christy Bredbender, all smiles for the moment. Home finale for Wichita State. Shockers have won 3 of the 4 to this point. Let's see if they can finish strong here today against the Kansas Jayhawks for this in-state rivalry showdown. Always seems to be a little extra juice when it's the home finale first and foremost. Maddie Espinosa, former player. It's Wichita State, it's Kansas, in-state showdown. I have a feeling there's a little bit of extra juice for both teams in this one today.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I feel like every time Wichita State has played KU, it's been a show, it's been fun, and it's been exciting. So I can't wait to see what's in store for today.
Presley Limbaugh, the first one up for the Jayhawks. Number 11 in the Big 12 for batting average this season. Playing center field for the Kansas Jayhawks. Taking the first 2. Both of them go as strikes for Ava Sliger, who against Charlotte made 2 appearances, both in relief. Combined of 5 innings of work for her. Surrendered 4 runs in 7 hits. But you look at the strikeouts and the walks, only had 2 Ks and 1 walk, but for the most part was very effective against the Charlotte 49ers. Sliger ready for the 0-2. And it goes downstairs, makes it 1 ball, 2 strikes. Kansas with 21 wins this season, 6-15 in the Big 12. Wichita State with 26 victories, 13-10-1 in the American Athletic Conference. Wichita State won earlier this season, 7-3 was the final up in Lawrence. This one slapped to left, but it's a line out to Ellie Eck, who was in the perfect spot to make the grab for the first out for the contest.
Now batting for the Jayhawks, the right fielder, number 39, Ainsley Linduff.
Yeah, she hit that exactly where it's supposed to go. Hit that outside corner, took it that way, didn't pull it, but Eck was just there.
Of course, when you have the slappers at the plate, that's what they're really known for. Really not trying to force the issue, really just take the ball where it is and try to capitalize with a hit. But Limbaugh goes down, and now we see Ainsley Linduff, starting right fielder for KU. Junior from Oklahoma City. Sliger getting the call right there to make it 0-2. Linduff is one of 4 Kansas players to be over 300 for a batting average this season. 312, her average for 2025. So Slager facing the top of the lineup, which features the main threat for the Kansas offense. Count evens at 2 balls, 2 strikes. Slager last week actually kicked off the week for Wichita State inside the circle against Kansas City. Run rule victory for Wichita State in that one. 15-2 being the final. Slager putting on a show early, getting the K there for the second out here in the first inning.
Now at the plate for Jayhawks, the
Another
shortstop,
outside
wearing
pitch,
41,
but this
Haley
time,
Wright.
no contact. She's been placing that ball very well. Looks like she's probably hitting it with her screwball, so, you know, just a really good pitch, really good placement.
Good sign for sure for the freshman Ava Slager. When these two teams last met, a combined 6 pitchers used. You had Alex Aguilar get the start for WSU, followed by Chloe Barber, and then Riley Neihart, the freshman, came in and got the save. Meanwhile, for Kansas, the Jayhawks turned to the trio of Brooks, Ludwig, and Washington. So both teams are going to get a different pitcher than what they saw a month ago up in Lawrence. Slager not getting a call on the inside, so Haley Kripe has a 3-0 advantage at the plate. Number 2 on the team in batting average at .352. Got the green light on the 3-0, but it ends up being the third out for Kansas. Wichita State's turn to the plate when we return. Wichita State's starting lineup looks like this. Lauren Lucas had herself a week. 5 home runs last week at Wilkins Stadium. 5 of the 15 for the Shockers in Wichita. Starting lineup brought to you by Groundworks. Inside the circle for Kansas, Olivia Bruno, the senior, logging her 10th start on the season. Appearance number 16. Not only is she good inside the circle, but also really good at the dish. I'll tell you more about that when we go to inning number 2, as she'll kick off the second frame for Kansas. Ellie Eck, Lauren Lucas, Taylor Solachik. First 3 to open up the offense for Wichita State. Eck ends up popping it up, and Souls is there for the catch from her first base position for the first out. Speaking of Souls at first base, here's a look at everyone else for Kansas. Limbaugh in center field has plenty of speed. Haley Kripe has been really solid for Kansas this year. Bruno goes right at Lucas and gets the call for a strike. 3.05 ERA for Olivia Bruno. 4-5 record, 59 2/3. Lucas taps it to the right side. There's Backshot, who scoops it up and pitches it on the first. 2 down for Wichita State.
Now batting for Wichita State, the second baseman wearing number 29, Taylor Solachik.
First 2 batters, pretty aggressive for Wichita State. We'll see if Taylor Solachik continues that theme for WSU.
Yeah, it seems like Wichita State is really aggressive, but sometimes you got to be careful with that because it seems like they're a little bit out front. They need to wait on the ball a little bit more.
Well, we've noted just what this type of contest means for people. Solachik, second pitch she sees, and it's a ground out to close inning number 1. A quick first frame as we move to the second, scoreless from Wichita. Heading number 2 for Wichita State and Kansas. Olivia Bruno inside the circle for KU defensively. Here's a look at what she's done offensively. Had a great freshman season, was an all Big 12 second teamer. Big power threat for Kansas as a senior this year, ranking number 11 in the Big 12 conference in home runs. And if you're flirting around the top 10 in the Big 12 in homers, you're probably pretty decent considering how good the Big 12 has been this season. Lots of ranked teams, and Wichita State has certainly faced Oklahoma State, a team that Kansas just faced. KU ended up claiming the series finale after losing the first 2. Olivia Bruno, Kansas native, played at Washburn Rural, former junior blue. Slager high and outside, making 2 balls, 1 strike. That junior blue program has turned out some pretty impressive players. Also comes from good stock athletically. Dad Tom played football. Mom Shauna played volleyball at Washburn. Here's Bruno showing off the power. A laser, a low line drive that ends up clearing the wall. And Bruno makes it home run number 11 on the season to give Kansas a 1-0 lead.
I mean, I really wouldn't say that I expected anything different. She's just a powerhouse. That looks so effortless. It was kind of low, little bit middle out, and she just drove that thing. But, I mean, Bruno's just an impressive player. Being able to pitch and hit, you got to be extremely athletic. You don't see that too often these days, and, man, she took that one for a ride.
Just a line drive to right. Looked like that maybe it could have just been a very long single, because had it actually gone off the wall, she might have been stopped at first base. But she got just enough underneath it. And that raw strength, you just saw it, being able to get that one over the wall. So Kansas, after seeing Wichita State have some home runs at Wilkins Stadium last week, you have Kansas getting a bomb to kick off the scoring. Campbell Bagshaw, next one up for KU. Fouls it off. Also a Topeka native. Also played at Washburn Rural. The junior batting .269 this season. 29 hits in total here for 2025. 2-1, lifted, shallow right field to go. Solacek back pedals to make the catch, 1 down.
We're seeing a lot of in and out from Slager. She's working the outside, the inside corner right there. She jams her, gets a little pop fly. I mean, she's doing her thing. More of a side-to-side pitcher.
Souls with some contact on the first swing, and she ends up getting a 1-out single for Kansas. 18th hit for Souls, is making her 19th start this season. In fact, you have 3 players in this lineup that did not get the start against Wichita State. And that 7-3 loss for Kansas against the Shockers. Souls was one of them. Natalie Marshall and Caden Stafford also did not start in that contest. Ava Wallace did. And she's the next one up for KU. Freshman from Rockwall, Texas. Kansas, when you look at the starting lineup, you do have a couple of seniors in there, but they do have some freshmen that were named to a freshman watch list. 6 freshmen came in, 4 of them named to a watch list. giving hope to Kansas for the future. Chance for a double play, out-recorded at second, and the stretch to complete the job by Compton at first base. Double play to close the top half of the second, but it's Bruno's long ball to make it 1-0 Kansas. Bottom half of inning number 2, Kansas already jumping out to a 1-0 lead. The pitcher, Olivia Bruno, giving herself a 1-run cushion with a solo jack. Let's see how she handles hitters 4, 5, and 6 for Wichita State, starting with Cameron Compton. Compton ends up watching the first one for ball 1. Compton was able to close the series finale against Charlotte by logging 1 hit. Bruno getting the swing through that one. Compton thought there was going to be a little bit more fire behind that one. Instead, it was a slower pitch.
Yeah, that's a really effective pitch right there. She's thrown that a couple times. Looks like it's a little bit of an off speed, and it tricks you up because her arm does not slow down whatsoever.
Compton was trying to go the same spot where Bruno went for the home run. Not enough distance behind it as Linda comes up with a catch. First out for the bottom half of inning number 2. Jody Epperson. She's been seeing the ball really well for Wichita State. Ended up logging 5 hits against the Charlotte 49ers, including a pair of home runs. This is a hot shot down third base. Epperson rounding first, easily reaches second. And it's a 1-out double for Jody Epperson for the first shocker hit for today.
Man, it was so quick. I feel like Jody has just been getting up to the base and just attacking that first pitch. We saw that in the Charlotte series. She comes up to bat. We were talking about something, and she takes one over, and we weren't even ready.
With that hit, she has now extended her hitting streak to 9 consecutive games. In the third game against Charlotte, the 49ers brought out a new pitcher, and the first pitch that she threw, we were coming back from a break. First pitch, boom, went over the left field wall in the corner right next to the foul pole. Jody Epperson really starting to hit her stride down the stretch for Wichita State. Here's Gabby Scott, the freshman catcher. That one goes as a strike. 2 balls, 1 strike to Gabby Scott, who failed to get a hit against Charlotte. Did score a run in the series opener against Kansas back on March 12th. Ended up having a great game against KU. She drove in 3. A 3 RBI day for Gabby Scott, and then Christy Brebenner has gone with Gabby Scott ever since that game against KU. Just shortly after that, 3 games later, against North Texas, ended up logging her first home run as a collegiate player, and it's been her behind the dish ever since. She's trying to welcome that pitch to maybe hit her to get to the first base, but instead ends up missing inside and making a 3-2 count to the freshman.
I would be expecting Bruno's off speed, but who knows? Oh!
Instead, she went with the fire and gets the inside corner. Gabby Scott goes down looking, and there are 2 down in the bottom half of the second.
Yeah, that was really nice placement. I think Scott, she had a similar call before, and she let it go, and that sure is a strike. That's a really nice pitch.
Not only did Gabby Scott have a great game against Kansas up in Lawrence, but so did Brooklyn Levonic. True freshman, designated player.
I mean, Levonic is hitting .360 as a freshman. I mean, it's one of the top batting averages on Wichita State's roster, and that just speaks volumes itself.
She drove in 2 of the 7 runs for Wichita State in that win against Kansas. And as you brought up, the batting average looks pretty solid for the Frosh. 360, which is good for number 2 on the team in batting average. And you're not talking, this is a freshman who has made an appearance in 20 games, 15 games. You're talking 39 appearances now, 32nd start. And the count evens at 2-2 as Bruno really is working that off-speed pitch, keeping Wichita State guessing. Bruno looking to shut the door after the double. Levonic tapped it. Does roll foul, so we'll do it again. Well, as good as Bruno has been at the dish this season, she's been equally as good in the circle. Back on April 17th, played Iowa State, went 6 innings, gave up 7 hits, had those 4 runs surrendered. Doesn't start a whole heck of a lot for KU, which I imagine for Coach Jennifer McFalls, the goal is to really use her power and her offense. But we need to call upon her inside the circle. She can deliver. Levonic waited on it. Ends up being skied in the air to Wallace and left. And the 1-out double goes nowhere for Wichita State. 1-0 Kansas through 2. Almost completely packed for the home finale for Wichita State. It is a rivalry after all, Wichita State and Kansas. KU does have a commanding lead in the all-time series, which started back in 1978. Took about 10 years for Wichita State to get that first win. Snapped a 3-game losing streak last month against Kansas. 7-3 the final. Funny enough, we've gone through spurts of winning for both teams in the series. You have Wichita State just snapping a 3-game losing streak. Well, you have Wichita State before losing 3 in a row. They won 3 straight in 2022 and 2023. Before then, it was Kansas that won 3 straight in 20 and 2021. And then Wichita State started the process of 3-3-3-3 by claiming 3 from 2016 to 2019. So it's been competitive the last 10 or so games. It's not just one-sided off the end of the bat for Natalie Marshall. And there is Solacek for the first out in the third.
I mean, I think that's what adds to a little bit of the spice between the two is that they've both had pretty decent programs the last, decade. And it's really added to, the competitiveness.
It for sure has. With KU last year winning 28 games, that was the most for Kansas since 2018. 10 wins in Big 12 play. That was the most since 2001. Been a long time for Kansas when it comes to conference wins. Then there's Wichita State. Shockers have always been rock solid over the years. Last year making it all the way to the American Athletic Conference Championship game. It's been fun seeing these two teams square off, and then when you look at just the state of Kansas in general, well, you look up at K-State, there's no softball program up there in Manhattan, so naturally this is the rivalry in the state of Kansas for softball. Kaden Stafford, the number 9 hitter for Kansas, starting third baseman for the Jayhawks. Lays down the bunt. Here comes Nelson charging in, and she makes the throw in time. Stafford tried to sneak one by, looking for her 4th hit. Instead, Nelson showing off the arm.
And not only did Nelson show off the arm, Compton again with a beautiful stretch.
That's how the second inning closed, at least in the top half. It was a 6-4-3 double play, and what made the play was Compton making another one. I don't want to shortchange Nelson for her ability to get to that ball, too. Not only did she have the arm, but she had the footwork to get the job done as well. 2 away at the top of the third, Presley Limbaugh. Second time at the dish for Kansas. Line out to left. Back in inning number 1. And Slager starting her off the same way the first appearance went. 2 strikes in favor of Ava Slager.
Yeah, this isn't really a count you want to get into. I mean, you typically don't see as much success at 0-2, but you know, she did hit a line drive after it, so I can't say too much. Even if it wasn't out, it was a hard hit ball. I got to give that to her.
It was a hard hit ball. One of the top players in the Big 12 for batting average, 373. Just outside the top 10 at number 11 in the Big 12. Slager goes downstairs and off the plate. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Presley Limbaugh out of Cooper, Texas. Last year started 35 of the 37 games she played. Takes it to the right side of the infield. An easy play for Solachik. 3 up, 3 down in the top half of the third. It's still Kansas, 1-0. They end up getting a throw to first in time by the pitcher Bruno for the first down.
Now at the plate for the Sharks, the third baseman, number 21,
Kristen Nelson starting third baseman for WSU. She had a great senior weekend for Wichita State. Had 4 hits against the 49ers, scored twice. Didn't drive in any runs. That really hasn't been her MO in 2025. But also last year, you can say that wasn't really her MO either. Her job was just simply put to get on the bags. Last year went 311, year before 273, this year 271. But the way that it started, she was under 200 for a little bit and finally got things rolling to bring that batting average up to 271 going into the final week of the regular season.
You don't want to count Kristen Nelson out. I swear. It's like, you know, even when she was 0 for a lot, she didn't get down on herself. She joked about it. She was like, you guys, I can't even smell a ball right now. I don't know what's going on. And then we would joke about it. And then all of a sudden she just started going off. And that's just what she does. I mean, she's a good player. She's able to come back from adversity.
She becomes the second shocker to reach the bags. First one was Jody Epperson off a 1-out double. 1-out walk for Kristen Nelson. 20th walk of the season for the senior at Wichita State. LEX turn for the second time today. Watches a high one for ball 1. She had herself a memorable week, to say the least. Had 3 home runs against Kansas City last Tuesday. She became the 4th shocker to hit 3 home runs in a game, tying a school record. Joining some pretty good company to get to 3 home runs. But something that she'll probably have on all those other players is the fact that she had 4 consecutive at-bats, 4 consecutive home runs.
Yeah, she really is she's got the dog in her. You know, she produces. She's very strong, very athletic. I mean, there's not much that girl can't do.
1 ball, 2 strikes as Bruno gets ahead. And something to note, too, at Stanford, she never flashed the power at Stanford. Of course, her time was a little bit different there for the Cardinal. Runner goes, Nelson trying to get second, but look at the arm from Marshall behind the dish. Sure looked like she put it right on the money. It looks like Coach McFalls would like to take another look, or at least have a conversation with the umpires. Behind the dish today, we have Jason Kemper. At first, it's Chad Spittler, and then Blake Solmy is over at third base. Coach McFall saying, hey, can we go take a look? And they will go take a look at the attempted stolen base by Kristen Nelson. Will be the 5th successful swipe for the senior this season. Just depends on what happened on the actual tag, because the throw very much was there. Unless somehow the ball got bobbled, which from that vantage point was not the case, but looked like the tag was perfect. But from that vantage point, looked like that Nelson maybe did skirt by. It almost seemed like Bagshaw was anticipating the hand coming to one particular spot, just basically looking at the left hand of Nelson.
She went around it.
Maybe Nelson, at the last possible second, just kind of said, I'm going to widen my stance a little bit. But, of course, we'll see if it gets overturned. The call on the field is safe at second, so.
It was a really good throw, though, I do have to say.
See, it looks like she was anticipating that she was going to go after a hand. It looked like the last possible second, Nelson just widened the arms to allow herself to slide in there, because then the tag wouldn't have happened until the chest. And arms extended.
That's great base running.
They're going to get there first before the chest gets there, but we'll see the official ruling. But from that vantage point, again, you have to have conclusive evidence to overturn it. But on that shot from center field, sure looked like she got in there safely, and they do rule it that way. Coach McFalls doesn't seem to be in agreement with that. And now they're having a discussion on what the count is behind the plate. I think they're just triple checking to make sure that that one was a ball and not a strike. Because if it was a strike, then, well, Eliek goes down swinging. It could have turned into an ending double play. So Nelson does successfully swipe second, putting a runner in scoring position for the second time for WSU. Eck thought about chasing that one from Bruno, instead holds back to make it 3-2.
I do love seeing Wichita State so aggressive on the bases. I mean, they're sending people. I mean, they're not really slow by any means, anyone. But some are obviously faster than the others. But they're sending everyone. They said, you know what? We're going to go for it.
Well, no hits in this frame, but Wichita State gets that second person on the bags. Putting 2 on for the American Athletic Conference Player of the Week in Lauren Lucas. 7 for 12 last week. 5 home runs. Drove in 9 for Wichita State. With her getting those home runs, now has over 20 in her career. She has already etched her name in the record books in multiple categories. But she'll say that her and Sydney McKinney are one and the same. They're the only 2 players in Shocker history to have 10 triples, 40 doubles, and 20 homers in a career. 0-2 off the plate.
Yeah. I mean, Sid McKinney was a
decent player.
An amazing player, to say the least. So to be even put in the same realm as her is, you know, something really impeccable. And I think that Lucas deserves it. She has worked her butt off and, you know, produced in many, many ways and come back from adversity.
Well, that time grounding out to second as Bagshaw was there to pick it up and throw it to first. The runners do advance, so Eck gets in scoring position. Nelson reaches third. But with 2 down, Taylor Solacek in a big spot for Wichita State as the Shockers try to find a way to tie this thing, trailing 1-0. Solacek really wanted to go after that one. Bruno has been mixing it up. She's been locked in for KU. I know you have the 2 walks surrendered, but for the most part, she's been great. Solacek ends up driving one to the left, but it ends up being hauled in by Limbaugh, and the threat is over. 2 runners get on, but Shockers come up empty again. 1-0 Kansas. Kansas leading 1-0 in this rivalry game, getting ready for inning number 4. It's been an up-and-down season for Kansas, especially in Big 12 play. But listen, the Big 12 is insanely good. Oklahoma State, a ranked team, a team that has taken down Wichita State a couple times this year. Well, Kansas found a way to take down Oklahoma State to wrap up the series against the Cowgirls. KU did welcome back 16 after lettering 8 players from their roster last season. They also welcomed 9 new players. They had 6 talented freshmen. And among the 6, you have Kennedy Diggs, Carson Griggs, you have Kaylee Washington. Those players were named to the Softball America Freshman Watch List. So the future very well could be bright for KU, and with just 2 seniors in the starting lineup today, there's definitely some youth that's coming up for KU. You do have a few transfers mixed in there, 3 of them to be exact. But KU this year, 21-24. Last year ended up winning 28 games. First pitch, snagged by Compton. She took that one out of the air. Linduff almost had herself, but would have been worth 2. Instead, Compton said, not so fast.
She had the reaction of a god. I can't even comprehend that one. I mean, she's had some wonderful stretches this game. That great snag now. Seems like Compton is really on with her defensive work.
Well, after getting that one at first, Haley Kripe decides to go to the left side of the infield. Second pitch here for the inning, and it ends up being the 3rd Kansas hit. Kripe has been great, batting .352, being number 2 on the team in that department. Bruno, last time she was at the plates, home run number 11. Kripe is right behind with 9. And here's Bruno skying this one. Epperson thought that one had some more life to it, but she comes in to make the grab. And quickly, there are 2 down in the top of the 4th.
Yeah, she got jammed just a little bit, but even so, she hit that ball so far. Just, a true testament to how strong Bruno really is.
So a 2-away Campbell Bagshaw. She popped up to second base back in the 2nd frame. Slager missing outside for ball 1. Starting to see the sun come out. It's been playing peekaboo with the clouds here for a little bit. We'll take that compared to the alternative. Going into today, I think we had an 85% chance of rain. And thankfully, it all cleared up, allowing this to be a beautiful day for a really solid crowd on hand at Wilkins Stadium. Slager gets the call there. 2 balls, 1 strike. And the 7-3 loss for Kansas to Wichita State. Bagshaw did go 1 for 3. Ended up walking once in that game. The majority of the damage being done, though, by Olivia Bruno, also drove in a run there. Opposite field, this one goes for Bagshaw, but Lucas just in front of the track. She gets the snag. 1-0 Kansas as we move to the bottom half of inning number 4. Conference Series wins. However, the Shockers still unable to come up with a sweep this year. 15 home runs last week, 5 against Kansas City alone last Tuesday. Going into the weekend, Wichita State ended up being the #1 team in the conference in home runs. You're thinking, all right, well, that'll probably stick for a little bit. East Carolina actually won homer better going into the game today. So if Wichita State wants to be there at the very top, they'll have to get one, and one would tie us up. 1-0 Kansas. Compton, Epperson, Scott all coming up for WSU. 69 home runs. That's good for 5th best in program history. And they have a chance to actually make some more headway in that department. If they get 2 more, they'll surpass the total from 2023. If they get another 7, they will surpass last year's total, which I think many people thought that wouldn't be possible when you lose a player like Addie Barnard and CeCe Wong. Although CeCe Wong hasn't gone anywhere, she's been sticking around and helping coaching for WSU. Compton stares at that one, makes it a full count.
You know, you talk about how ECU came back, they got 70, WSU has 69 in it. I think that just goes to show how competitive the American is.
Compton driving this one to left, and there is Cameron Compton to tie up the game at 1-all. Compton with her 11th home run. There's number 70. Most importantly, we're knotted up at 1.
We were literally just talking about this, and here we go. There's another one. I mean, bats seem to be pretty hot here recently.
Or for Cameron Compton, it felt like you have said this a time or two about some other players. Oh, they feel like they're due. For Cameron Compton, it almost felt like she was due for a big hit. She was a menace there in the later part of March. She had 2 home runs against UTSA, had a homer against Central Arkansas, 1 against Oklahoma, 1 against South Florida. She was just lighting people up. And then she went quiet in terms of the power. And maybe the hits went away as well. But a great time for Cameron Compton to put a stamp on this game for her name. Epperson going to right field. That could drop, and it ends up dropping in foul territory. Well, a whole new outlook on the game now as Cameron Compton hits that home run. Jody Epperson, up to that point, was the only one to get a hit for Wichita State with that 1-out double back in the 2nd frame. Ripped one down the 3rd base line. This one, she just tries to flare it over the shortstop, but Kripe showing the range. Gets the snag for the first out in the bottom half of the 4th.
Now to play for the Sharks, Gabby Scott.
Gabby Scott, the next one up for Wichita State. First one goes as a strike. After going over 7 against Charlotte. Ended up striking out looking last time at the plate. Really, for a freshman, you might expect freshmen to strike out even more, but Scott really hasn't been that type of hitter. Only 9 Ks. This one's a slow roller. Kripe with enough arm strength to come up with the 2nd out. Brooklyn Levonic out of Texas. In game 2 against Charlotte, saw a 4-game hit streak come to a close. Trying to start a new one here today, although she did get a hit against Charlotte in the series finale. Ended up going as a triple for Brooklyn Levonic. Her only triple so far this year. 6 doubles. Not a lot of pop for Levonic in terms of power, but just a truly consistent hitter.
As long as you're consistent and you can get on, I mean, you got to have people on bases to hit them in. So, no, I think she does great in that DP position. I mean, she's really, I mean, especially for a freshman, stepping up to the plate and hitting 360, you know, she's done a really good job this season.
Listed as an outfielder, but has been the designated player all throughout the year. She swings her, that one got a piece, but it was caught by the catcher, so she goes down swinging. However, tie game as we move to the 5th after the home run from Cameron Compton. A line drive home run to right to make it a 1-0 lead for Kansas in the 2nd. Wichita State tried to battle back after the double from Epperson, but there's Bruno who gets the strikeout. Cameron Compton with a good play at first. But most recently in the 4th, you saw a solo blast from Cameron Compton to make this a new game tied at 1. Opening up the 5th frame with Anna Souls, Ava Wallace, and Natalie Marshall for Kansas. 2 balls, no strikes. As that one goes outside. Souls, a sophomore from League City, Texas. Goes after that one, and guess who's there? Cameron Compton, who gets an unassisted out over at first base.
Not a surprise at this point. She is seeming solid as can be on defense here lately.
Ava Wallace.
Made a stretch for a double play ball back in the 2nd. There's also a tough throw by Kristen Nelson back in the 3rd. And then you have the line drive that opened up the 4th frame. Kansas probably getting tired of going that way to Cameron Compton. Ava Wallace, one of those freshmen I was telling you about earlier. Brings an impressive resume to KU, a decorated high school athlete. Was a first-team outfielder of the year, newcomer of the year down in Texas. Texas 6A all-area and all-district honors. Led her team to a 36-1 record back in 2023. Taps that one foul just to stay alive. Has a log to hit since the Kansas City game, which was not too long ago. In fact, last week, Wichita State had Kansas City here. Shockers won 15-2 in run rule fashion. And then Kansas City the next day took on Kansas. And KU had similar success, 21-4 in Kansas City. Coming up next for Kansas, the Jayhawks will go back to Lawrence for a 3-game series against UCF. Wichita State, meanwhile, heads to Tennessee, the challenge the Memphis Tigers. Both teams trying to improve on positioning for their respective conference tournaments for postseason. For Wichita State, currently in 5th, has a chance to maybe leapfrog Charlotte for the number 4 spot. 2-2. Tough play for Epperson, but she is able to race to the ball. 2 down.
Yeah, she got a little bit jammed there. I was surprised Wallace was able to get on that pitch with it being so low and inside, but here we are again, Epperson with the range. We all know she's got it.
Well, the way that it was hit just made you wonder if there was enough to keep it up in the air. Turns out there was. Natalie Marshall, who's behind the dish, made an incredible throw on an attempted steal back in the 3rd. Upon further review, play on the field stood. but she showed what she can do behind the dish defensively. At the plate, Allie Marshall, the senior, batting .244. Really has had a tough time there in Lawrence. Did not appear in a game when she was a freshman. As a sophomore, saw action in 10 games, started one. Last year, missed the entire season due to the injury. But here she is, back for Kansas, logging her 18th start this year. 2-1, chased after it. There's Nelson with plenty of time for a 1-2-3 top half of the fifth. We stay tied at 1-1 as we move to the bottom half. Demand for seating at Wilkins Stadium. We have a good crowd in the main part of the stands. But, you know, it's nice. Might as well get out there to right field. You never know. Could catch a souvenir from time to time. Maybe Sammy Hood could deliver one of those for WSU. Number 8 hitter, followed by Kristen Nelson and Ellie Eck. A combined 5 hits at this point. And both runs coming off solo homers. Hood was swinging for the fences. Fans at that one to make it 0-2. Sammy Hood started off the series strong at Charlotte, went 2 for 3, but then went 0 for 6 in the next 2. However, it's not necessarily about the production at the dish for Sammy Hood. It's always been about what she can do at shortstop. 1-2. Fans at that one, and Olivia Bruno makes it another strikeout. That's 3 now for Olivia Bruno, who outside of just that one home run she gave up, she's been locked in for Kansas.
Yeah, I got her with that off speed again. I mean, I told you that off speed is so effective. I mean, it's just dirty. She doesn't slow down at all. Her arm movement is fast. And, man, you talked about how, you know, she's known for her, you know, her hitting, but her pitching has been rock solid today so far. And, I mean, it's just good to see. She's really doing that thing.
Well, for a moment, we thought it was Katie Brooks, who just logged her 200th career strikeout against Oklahoma State. We are definitely prepared for her, and then Coach McFalls decided to switch it up, going with Olivia Bruno. And she has answered the call, to say the least. Nelson skies it up, but it's out of play. Becomes 1-2 for the count. With those strikeouts, now up to 44 on the season. Also 36 walks. She has given up a couple of free bases, but for the most part has been dialed in to this Wichita State offense. Had 6 innings of work against Iowa State. If she can finish the job here, there's a good chance she could go the distance for Kansas. Don't want to put on the broadcaster's jinx, but she looks prime and ready to do that. But at the dish, that's where she's really made a mark. When you're at 11 home runs, which I'm sure is going to move her up in the rankings for the Big 12. Hard not to focus on that one particular area. Nelson grounds out to first, and there are 2 down. Lineup card turns over with Ellie Eck. Another look at what Nelson did there, but nothing fancy.
Just seems like Wichita State is out front with Bruno. I mean, Bruno isn't, you know, blasting it past people. You know, she's averaging like 60 to 63, and, you know, it just seems like they're not waiting on the ball as much as they could.
Maybe a little deception from Olivia Bruno. I know you look at different ways to come up with a windup and pitch. It's not like baseball where you have a million different angles you can go with. Softball is a little bit more controlled, but some pitchers, though, they have the ability to mess up your timing a little bit, and maybe that's the case with Bruno here today.
Or it could just be Bruno's presence. I mean, she's a strong girl. You can tell. I mean, you can tell from how many home runs she has as well. But you know that she just has that presence. You see her in the circle. It doesn't look like she doesn't have a care in the world. She's not worried. She's here for the fight.
Eck ends up getting this one to left field. And there's Limbaugh ranging over that way from her center field spot to get the grab. 3 up, 3 down to close the 5th frame. 1-1 as we move to the 6th. 1-1 as we move to the 6th. Beautiful day in Wichita, and the crowd is definitely reflecting that for the final home game for 2025. Ava Slager started this thing for Wichita State, but now the Shockers turn to the other freshman, Riley Neihart. I'm not saying that disrespectfully because obviously her numbers are very solid with that 2.83 ERA. She does have 1 save this year, and it was against the Kansas Jayhawks last month in that 7-3 win. Freshman deals and goes downstairs. We have a pinch hitter, September Flanagan, the sophomore, taking the spot of Cadence Stafford. Neihart deals that one in there for a called strike. Flanagan, sophomore from Morrison, Oklahoma. Look at those numbers right there. Has started 32 games, appearance number 35 this year. Two balls, 1 strike. Last year as a freshman, started in 7 games last year, 18 appearances in total. So got a little bit of playing time. Those numbers have gone up for her sophomore campaign against Oklahoma State. Ended up getting a couple of at-bats in one of those games against the Cowgirls, but went 0 for 2. So she has subbed in from time to time, but not a consistent starter for Kansas. Neihart misses, and it's 3-2. Neihart coming in and trying to switch things up in a tied game at 1. For Ava Slager, with her getting the start, primarily she has been the one to come in relief. But it's a role reversal for Riley Neihart, who hasn't exactly been in this situation as Flanagan taps it foul. Maddie, being a former player like yourself, of course you weren't a pitcher, but has that changed the rhythm?
I mean, it really just depends. I think Neihart, as a freshman coming in and being as successful as she has been, I don't think it's going to throw her too much. It might actually give her a little bit of a refresher, a little bit of extra spice, because she's been pitching so much and she's been starting so much and not coming in relief much. So she might be a little bit more fresh, but it could also be so different from what she's used to that she's, it takes a little bit more for her to settle in. And I think that might be what we're seeing so far, but we also then again have only seen 1 batter.
So Flanagan draws the walk, and then a re-enter from Stafford, who goes over there as the pinch runner. So they basically just flip-flop. Hey, good work. Thanks for taking my at-bat. And I'll go ahead and take your spot and get out there and run a little bit.
I mean, it takes a whole team to win. It really does.
Top of the lineup for Kansas now. It's Presley Limbaugh. Showing bunt. Fortunately for Kansas, you had Stafford get up in a hurry. She slipped but no one was really there to cover for Wichita State, and I don't think Gabby Scott was really looking for it over there. But there was a moment that could have been a disaster for KU. Nyhart low again. 2 balls, no strikes. Well, in relief against Kansas, ended up going 3 innings, only gave up 1 hit, had a strikeout with a walk. Scott looking over at first. Stafford dancing around just for a moment to make Gabby Scott think for a little bit. But Nyhart here really having a tough time really settling in. I do understand the aspect of trying to get warmed up and ready to rock and roll, but here's the thing. You know what's coming up with Haley Kripe and Olivia Bruno. Both those players with a lot of pop, a lot of power. Linduff, not that type of way, but again, she's one of 4 players in the top of the lineup batting over 300 for Kansas. Jennifer McFalls, head coach at Kansas. Season number 6, 123 wins as the head Hawk. Was an assistant coach at Texas from 2010 to 2018. Ended up in Lawrence. Delivered 28 wins last year, the most since 2018, and the most conference wins since 2001. This year's been a different story. But that doesn't mean this Kansas team still doesn't have the ability to surprise some people from time to time, much like Oklahoma State last time out, when the Cowgirls, who were ranked, fell to Kansas. Nyhart dips this one outside the zone, and it's back-to-back walks surrendered by Nyhart in relief.
Now at the plate for the Jayhawks, Ainsley Linda.
Ainsley Linduff is 0 for 2. Struck out looking back in the first, line out to first base, back in the 4th frame. Before Nyhart can continue the conversation inside the circle. Nyhart, though, has been a gamer for Wichita State. Whenever she does run into trouble, she does seem to really thrive in those types of moments for Wichita State, which is very rare for a freshman. Most times you are in the trouble. You don't necessarily see the type of a fight back. Normally there's a quick surrender. But Nyhart, a little bit different.
I think she's different from a lot of freshmen. I mean, not just her drive, but her confidence in the circle. And maybe we're not seeing that so much right now, but, you know, she could come back. Like you said, she's got the fight in her. So, you know, she's really been a significant player for Wichita State, a significant pitcher. So, you know, who knows what she's going to do in the rest of her career here.
So with 2 on, Linduff is showing bunt. Nelson takes the out at first, but the sacrifice puts 2 in scoring position for the number 3 hitter, Haley Kripe.
Now to play the shortstop, Haley
Kripe against Wichita State was 0 for 3 with a walk last month. What a big spot for her here. Sitting with 33 runs batted in. The junior trying to put Kansas back out front. And wow, Riley Nyhart trying to bounce back. Kripe does have a hit today. She's 1 for 2. Grounded out to third in the first. Singled in inning number 4. Was a mainstay for Kansas last year. One of 2 Kansas players to start in all 54 games. Went after the 1-0 and got a little bit of it, but not enough. Fouled it back. Led Kansas with 39 RBI. Quite the defender. 6 in the Big 12 with 109 assists. Nyhart able to get the call there. Makes it 2-1. 1-1 our score. Top of the sixth, 1 down. 2 runners in scoring position for Kansas. Jayhawks led 1-0 in the second, but it was tied up in the bottom half of the fourth. No call there for Nyhart. I think she was a little bit disappointed. She's been going pretty low, keeping a lot of these pitches low for sure, but just unable to really elevate them to try to get to the knee area.
Also, you see a lot with, inexperienced catchers. They're not able to get that low ball up enough. And, that could just come with lack of experience or, well, seemed like that was hit pretty hard and a little bit of commotion over there at the third base dugout.
Bear look out for sure. Bruno didn't seem to flinch at all, which I'm not too surprised. Senior cool, calm, and collected for Kansas on deck. 3-2. Kripe ends up popping up to Sammy Hood. And Riley Nyhart 1 out away from getting out of the jam.
But man, is this going to be a big out.
Of course, the inning is not over, and it's easier said than done to get this person out, and Olivia Bruno. Responsible for the 1 run back in the second with a solo home run. Not much lift to it. Really just looked like a standard line drive to the wall that could have been worth maybe 2, but I have a feeling she would have been stopped at first. And then back in the fourth, ended up lining out to center field. Still a pretty well-hit ball, despite the fact that she did get a little bit jammed. Nyhart understands, though, trying to make sure that this doesn't become a 3-run advantage for Kansas.
Yeah, I would imagine that Nyhart is like, do not keep this anywhere on the plate. We don't need Bruno hitting a 3-run home run. So looks like they're giving her outside, outside, and outside.
The last 2 pitches were well outside, and Gabby Scott says, okay, we're just going to go ahead and put Bruno on first base to load the bases and take our chances with Campbell Bagshaw. First one there ended up being a strike, but then the next decision from the dugout was to not mess around with Olivia Bruno. Bases loaded for Campbell Bagshaw.
Now to pitch for Kansas, Campbell Bagshaw.
Just 14 runs batted in this season. And a big spot for her. She has struck out the most amount of times with 36. Kansas, coming into today's game, has struck out the most in the Big 12 Conference with 260. Now, it could have something to do with just the pitching in the Big 12. But something definitely to note in this situation, as Riley Nyhart, who's not known for being a strikeout pitcher, trying to strand all 3 runners out there for Kansas. And she's 1 pitch away from getting the job done. Bagshaw flew out to second. Back in the second frame. Line out to right in inning number 4. The 0-2. Trying to get Bagshaw to chase. Wise decision to not go after that one. One, 2, put in play, and Sammy Hood let it go off the glove. That scores 2 for Kansas. And the Jayhawks reclaim the lead. They're on top 3-1.
The pressure was on, and it seemed to get to her a little bit.
Took a high hop, but Sammy Hood almost always makes that one. Instead, it goes off the glove And the error scores 2 for Kansas. Nyhart goes off speed and gets the call in the outside corner. Anna Souls, responsible for one of the 3 hits for Kansas, singled back in the second. Grounded out to first base last time up. Souls went after that one and popped it high up in the air. Goes right to the big building that's almost 100% complete. Probably 90%, 95%, depending on how you look at it. 0-2, ended up getting just enough to see another pitch for Anna Souls. When Nyhart delivered the ground ball, unfortunately unable to get the third and final out here in the 6th, allowing Kansas to jump back ahead. And for the first time, leading by multiple runs. Nyhart way off the plate. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Just goes to show, though, that, you don't need a pretty hit. You can just put it in play and make things happen. And, I'd rather put it in play every day than strike out a whole bunch. So, she did a job there.
This one, tough play. It's fielded by Compton, but they say it ends up being a foul ball just to the right. Almost hung in there. Compton would have had a chance to make another great play at first base defensively. Instead, Souls hit to set another pitch. Souls has been battling here for this one plate appearance for Kansas, trying to keep the line moving. And Nyhart trying to keep her guessing. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Well, you're right, though. It's better just to try to put something in play rather than the alternative, which is to take the pitch in that situation and strike out looking, which Riley Nyhart's been so good at doing all throughout the year. Just like that, Riley Nyhart does get the call on the outside corner. Top half of the 6 is done, but the error scores 2 Jayhawk runs, 3-1 Kansas. A bit greater than what they had to deal with earlier. Solo home run by Cameron Compton tied it in the 4th, but 2 runs score in the top half of the 6th. If there is ever a time for this Wichita State offense to get going, it would be with the 2, 3, 4 hitters, starting with Lauren Lucas. She's 0 for 2 with a pair of groundouts over the second base. The reigning American Athletic Conference Player of the Week. Number 2 for career batting average in a Shocker uniform. Total bases, she's up to number 10 now in a Shocker uniform with 328. Runs batted in, surpassing Lori Derrico back from 2016 to 2019. Lucas now with 143 RBI, good for 5th. Here she is down the count, 1-2. Lucas fouls that one off.
Hey, we talked about Bruno not moving, but I didn't see a flinch from Coach Bredbender. That's a woman over there.
Christy Bredbender winning her 400th game earlier this year. 1-2, Lucas waiting on it, but it's Kripe who plucks it out of the air for the first out here in the bottom half of the 6th.
A beautiful hit, but a more beautiful play.
That one is worth another look and maybe another 10. Saving what would have been a leadoff single for Lauren Lucas. Well, now Taylor Solacek with 1 down takes the first one for a called strike. Just looking at Bruno, just her facial reaction. She is very much wanting to close the door here and go the distance. There's Solachik, though. She got it by the glove of Stafford. Solachik takes off for second and slides in safely.
Hopefully Stafford's okay. That ball seemed to have some spice on it and came up and hit her in her throat or something of the sort. I mean, that's a rope hit.
Another look. Yeah, it just went off the glove and pinballed off her face, and that allowed Taylor Solachik to not get one, but two. So runner in scoring position for the Shockers, and Compton, if she ends up doing what she did last time, she can tie up the game. But swinging for the fences and coming up empty is Compton for strike one. Flew out to right in the second. Had that home run to left field, went right after the scoreboard. Gets way underneath this one. Kripe calling everyone off, and the shortstop gets the second out for Kansas. Jody Epperson trying to keep things moving for Wichita State. She has one of the 3 hits for the Shockers. Had that double down the third base line in inning number 2. Olivia Bruno, though, looking mighty impressive inside the circle.
Yeah, I can't tell you how much that off-speed is throwing off Wichita State's lineup. I mean, it looks like they're taking it and choosing not to swing at that and swing at other pitches, which, that's their plan. That's not bad, but...
Epperson rolling it. Kripe there for the throw, and she gets the job done. That was the Kripe inning. Keeps it as a 3-1 ball game as we move to the 7th. From Wichita. In-state rivalry, Kansas and Wichita State. If the score were to hold up in favor of the Jayhawks, well, they're going to disrupt what we've seen in the series. 3-game win streak for one team, 3-game win streak for the next one. That's been the pattern. With Wichita State snapping a 3-game losing streak last month, Kansas very well could disrupt everything by getting the W here. They're looking to add to the 3-1 advantage that the Jayhawks have with the 7, 8, 9 hitters dealing with Riley Neihart. First pitch grounded by Wallace, and Kristen Nelson makes the out over at first. One pitch for one down here in the 7th.
Nelson has just seemed very strong this game. I mean, typically, like we mentioned before, she's known for her defense. But I tell you today, they're putting the pressure on Nelson, and she's coming through. Her arm looks fantastic.
Marshall went after the first one. Can't get a piece. 0 for 2 today. A couple of grounders. Grounded out the second. Back in the 5th. Grounded out to Kristen Nelson over at third base. Now Marshall going to the right side, and there is Lauren Lucas moving around to come up with a second catch here for the 7th. And now we'll see Cadence Stafford get another opportunity. She was replaced by Flanagan in the 6th. And she's the one that drew the walk, but then Stafford came in to replace her to be, I guess, technically a pinch runner, but not necessarily a pinch runner. Stairs with the first one, downstairs for ball 1. Well, this would be a nice win for the Kansas Jayhawks. After that win against a ranked opponent for the first time against Oklahoma State. Looking to really build off that. Lost 2 or 3 to Oklahoma State. Won the finale against Iowa State up in Ames. Series before then in the Big 12 was against a ranked Arizona team. Here's a solid drive to left, but there is Ellie Eck sprinting to the ball for the final out in the top half of the 7th. Wichita State needs some magic, trailing 2 as we move to the final half of the 7th. For a 3-game series with UCF, Olivia Bruno trying to go the distance, has 5 complete games this year. Had a complete game against Iowa State to open up the series back on April 17. It was a 4-2 loss. Complete game before, then a 2-0 loss to Arizona. Hopefully everyone's okay. Gabby Scott lined that to right, and you heard the reaction. Hopefully everyone is okay there. Gabby Scott, who really was the hero against Kansas last month, drove in 3 runs in that game. That's what allowed her to stay in the starting lineup for WSU moving forward. But today, 0 for 2. Brooklyn Levonic, who set the follow, also 0 for 2. Scott lines one to the hot corner. Stafford's there for the snag. 1 down.
It just seems like Bruno is in the zone. I mean, she's smiling on the mound, but she also she's intense right now. She's ready. She's like, you know what? Let's get this done. Let's take this dub. And she's using that off speed so much to her advantage, and it is working. I mean, it's leaving Wichita State in their tracks.
That off speed has maybe been the best that we've seen all season from all the pitchers who have come out this way. And to think that Coach McFalls was thinking of going with Katie Brooks, and don't get me wrong, she's a talented pitcher in her own right. Good decision to go with Olivia Bruno, who has just been monstrous inside the circle. You saw the reaction there. She thought that she was going to get the call on the outside corner. Levonic lives to see another pitch. She is one of 3 strikeout victims to Bruno. Levonic just tried to roll one, got by the pitcher, and Levonic is able to leg out a single for Wichita State. That one didn't have a lot of life behind it, but she's at least on.
Yeah, and she was going to be safe no matter what. It was almost like a push bunt. Kind of threw them off there.
Christy Bradbetter before Sammy Hood could get a chance to swing. Looks like Coach Bradbetter would like to go with a pinch runner, and it's Caroline Talent. Will hop on the bag at first. And the series opener against Charlotte for senior weekend, Caroline Talent came in and ended up flashing her speed, going from first to third. So Christy Bradbetter going to a pinch runner. Well, what a moment here for Sammy Hood. A chance for redemption after having the error back in the 6th that allowed 2 Kansas runs to score. Bruno grooves that in there for strike 1. Hood is 0 for 2. Grounded out back to the pitcher in the 3rd, struck out swinging in the 5th. Not bad placement, and you saw the reaction from Bruno looking over at the catcher, Marshall, telling her catcher, can you talk to the home plate ump real quick? What was wrong about that one?
I told you, she's feeling herself.
1-1, and went with the off speed, and Sammy Hood way out in front. Makes it 1-2. Sammy Hood trying to take a deep breath. Can she come up in the clutch for Wichita State? She puts it in play. The out at second. No double play turn. Talent is going back to the dugout. Sammy Hood reaches on a fielder's choice. That was tougher than what it initially looked like. Hood almost got that by Stafford, but Stafford with some good plays here in the 7th. Last inning, it was Haley Kripe. But you're seeing some good defense from Stafford. So Shockers are down to their final out. It's Kristen Nelson, the number 9 hitter. Walked back in the third, grounded out the first and the fifth. Bruno nibbling on the outside, but off the dish. 1 ball, 1 strike. Nelson has had some big at-bats before. Last year came up big multiple times. She waits on this one. This could end it. They throw it the first, and it goes off the glove. And that allows Sammy Hood to go over the third. Circle, making sure everyone's on the same page. Meanwhile, for Wichita State, Christy Bredbender, not only is she going to talk to the base runners and Ellie Eck, but CeCe Wong out there. This is a long meeting for both teams and a very pivotal at-bat following the miscue from Kansas.
I don't know how, but it always seems like Nelson is just able to get on in those moments where, you know, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of, you know, not breathing happening, and she somehow gets on. And I'd be a little bit, I wouldn't be too worried. I mean, Bruno's had an amazing game, but Ellie Eck is for sure a respectable hitter. So I don't know what's going to happen.
And here's the thing for Bruno, you do not want to give Lauren Lucas an opportunity to hurt you, who is 0 for 3 in this game. Eck is 0 for 2 with a walk. Eck was trying to sit back on it, ends up grazing it. You have the tying run at first. Ellie Eck has shown her power as of late. 4 home runs last week. Had 3 against Kansas City and had 1 against Charlotte. Had 4 consecutive at-bats with a home run. The Andell, Kansas native, just outside of Wichita. 2-1 way upstairs for Bruno. Maybe a little bit too much umph behind it. And now let's see just how aggressive Ellie Eck wants to be with a 3-1 hitter's count. Bruno ready. Outside, and the bases are loaded for the American Athletic Conference Player of the Week, Lauren Lucas, who is 0 for 3 today.
She might be 0 for 3, but her last at-bat, she did have a great barrel. But Kripe was just able to get to it. It was a beautiful play from Kripe, but Lucas does have that barrel underneath her now.
Lucas turns on one, but she was just out front. Had it stayed fair, that would have tied us up for sure. Bases loaded. 2-run game. Kansas with an error with 2 down to keep this thing alive for Wichita State. The 0-1. Lucas swings through, and Bruno 1 pitch away from going the distance and getting the W. Lauren Lucas goes after the 0-2 and lines it foul. Lauren Lucas with a couple of ground outs to seconds. As you brought up in the 6th, it was Kripe who had to go full extension to take away a hit for Lauren Lucas. Bruno was trying to get her the chase. Lauren Lucas chooses not to. Lucas, one of the top RBI producers in a Shocker uniform, number 5. A chance to add to it for WSU here. This one bounces away. Marshall was able to keep it in front of her, and that will hold everyone for the moment. Had it actually gotten by her, then that would have been a run for sure for WSU. 2-2. High and inside.
There's all types of pressure in this stadium right now. I'm feeling it, and I'm on neither team.
Marshall wants to slow it down for a moment. Trotting out to the pitcher in Bruno. And now the rest of the infielder is going to go in and basically tell Bruno, the last couple you've seen from her, she's really trying to blow it by. And sometimes when you're so amped up, sometimes that can lead to disaster. 3 balls, 2 strikes, 2 down, bases loaded. The pitch. It's downstairs, and Wichita State now makes it a 1-run game following the bases loaded walk.
I mean, we were scared for Lucas to be up in this situation, but Solacek has some power too. She walks a lot, she gets on a lot.
Well, Bruno has really been keeping Solacek guessing, although last time she was at the plate, Solacek did have that hit that extended into 2 bags following the bobble over there in left field. Bruno is definitely amped up because we haven't seen her miss all that high. It's only arrived here in the 7th, but naturally it makes sense. High pressure situation for both teams. 1-1, she tried to drop it in, and Bruno did not get the call in the inside corner.
Yeah, it's definitely all a mental game right now about who can close this out.
Bruno trying to do so, the 2-1 inside. And Bruno is in danger of walking in the tying run. Solacek has had a good eye all season, sitting with 26 walks. Make it 27 as we're tied up at 3. Back-to-back walks turn this place into a frenzy. So Solacek getting walk number 27. Cameron Compton is the next one up, but Kansas is going to change pitchers. 2 down, bottom of the 7th. We're tied at 3. We'll step aside for the pitching switch. More coming your way next. Kansas was pretty good today. Going into the 7th, leading by 2. But Wichita State has clawed back to tie it up. Bases are still loaded. 2 down. Cameron Compton had a solo home run back in the 4th. Has a chance to be the hero. As we see Katie Brooks, who's in to replace Olivia Bruno. Brooks was initially going to be the starter and then ended up going to Olivia Bruno. 1-1, different speed here from Brooks. Really grooving on in there. That one reached 69 miles per hour.
Yeah, she's definitely throwing the heat. That's going to be different for those hitters.
1-2, not a terrible place to go after. Instead, Coppin takes it, make it 2-2. Both runs came in back-to-back bases loaded walks. 2-2 up the middle, off the glove for Brooks. Tough play, but the out is made at second. Kripe was able to put the foot on the bag, and that closes the seventh. To extras we go for this rivalry game, tied at 3. This Wichita State, an in-state rivalry game. Last time these two teams met, Wichita State won 7-3, but apparently we needed some extra innings here for the home finale. And believe it or not, you would think, oh, I'm sure it's been a long time since these two teams were in extras. Actually, not so much. Last year, doubleheader, it was Kansas winning 6-3, and then in game 2, 6-5 in 8 innings being the final of that one. Second time, make it the third time that the series has had an extra inning contest. Top of the lineup for Kansas, Presley Limbaugh, Ainsley Linduff, and Haley Kripe. Riley Neihart came in for relief. But in all honesty, you look at Neihart and what she's been able to do, ran into a little bit of trouble, but for the most part, when you look at the 2 runs given up back in the 6th, not necessarily her fault, although she did put 3 on with 3 walks. It was an error that scored 2 for Kansas back in the 6th. But then in the 7th, Kansas returned the favor with an error with 2 down en route to back-to-back bases loaded walks to tie this thing up at 3.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the crowd here at Wilkins Stadium, and they're getting the show they came for. They knew this in-state rivalry was going to be a good game, and it has shown to be. I mean, both teams have been extremely competitive in the circle, at-bats, everything. It's been fun to watch.
(3-1) the Limbaugh. Up the middle it goes and rolls by Sammy Hood. First hit of the day for Presley Limbaugh, who's just outside the top 10 in Big 12 batting average.
Now at bat, Ainsley Linduff.
Ainsley Linduff, starting right fielder. When Kansas had 2 on, ended up landing a successful sacrifice bunt in the 6th to advance to 2. She shows bunt again, and Nelson will gladly accept the out, but another sacrifice bunt from Linduff to put a runner in scoring position for Haley Kripe.
Now batting for the Jayhawks, the shortstop, Haley Kripe.
And both errors that we have seen in the contest today, both of them taking place at steal from Kristen Nelson. So they're going to go take a look at it.
The play from first to second is under review.
So we'll see
Doesn't look like she left early at all.
And for Coach Brett Benner, you only get so many challenges, so sometimes when you are in that position, sometimes you just go ahead and do it just to do it.
Yeah, and especially with a close game like this, I mean, why not?
It shouldn't take too long for those umpires to really make the call. Although on the attempted stolen bag, upon further review, the umpire at second got it right on the initial call. Although when you see it to the naked eye, the throw was definitely there on time. It should have been an out for the Kansas defense, but instead, upon further review, we saw Kristen Nelson really find a way to take her arms and get around the tag. So they'll take a look at this one. Don't think it'll take all that long to officially confirm this, because it sure looked like everything was fine. But for Coach Christy Bredbenner, it's another opportunity, too, to allow your pitcher to stand there and maybe get on the same page as the catcher as well with Gabby Scott. Turns into extended timeout. And, of course, while that's going on for Wichita State, you can have Kansas also discuss some different things as well. Here's the official ruling. And she is safe. Call is confirmed. So Limbaugh is in scoring position at second. Kaylee Kripe, Olivia Bruno, the next two coming up for Kansas. Kripe is 1 for 3 in this one. Singled back in the fourth. Grounded out to third in the first. And popped up to short. Nyhart has really been keeping things low when it would be wise to continue that trend. Haley Kripe with the ability to leave the yard, much like Olivia Bruno. Nyhart downstairs and off the plate. Bruno with 11 home runs now. You have Kripe sitting at 9. They have been by far and away the top two producers for Kansas at the plate, combining for 71 total runs driven in. One, popped out. Haley Kripe from Indiana. So solid for Kansas last year in her sophomore campaign. Has only elevated her game here for this season. However, it's the freshman Nyhart who gets her off balance. First strikeout for Riley Nyhart. Actually making number 2 for Riley Nyhart. Although Olivia Bruno was replaced inside the circle, she now takes the spot of designated player. That's where she was originally, with Katie Brooks supposed to make the start. Instead they went with Bruno. Back in the second, end up going opposite field. But the plan of attack is very clear here for Gabby Scott Nyhart. Scott just setting up on the outside and just saying, hey, we're not going to get anything close to give her the drive. Although we saw the natural power, but once again, Nyhart and Gabby Scott, they are not taking any chances with Olivia Bruno.
I don't think I would want to take any chances either, especially with Bruno having such grit today on the mound. I mean, she's obviously, you know, she's amped up. I wouldn't want her to get a hold of a ball.
Up to 17 walks now following that one. Back-to-back walks for her. And now you put the pressure back on Campbell Bagshaw. But She did put the ball in play last time in the 6th, and that's what allowed Kansas to score a pair of runs. 0 for 3. Nyhart ready to rock and roll. Gets the call there. We're even at 1 ball, 1 strike. Nyhart had 2 appearances against Charlotte over the weekend. Both of those appearances resulting in W's. A combined 11 innings of work, had 8 hits surrendered, only 2 earned runs given up, which is why her ERA is below 3, sitting at 2.83. Over 100 innings logged. One, 2. Nelson will just go ahead and put the foot on third base. We head to the bottom half of the 8th. Shockers looking for a walk-off with the game tied at 3. No one has really left, which can't say I blame them. It's a good day for some softball. We had rain in the forecast. Got a little bit of a breeze, but all in all, a great day for some softball. And these fans have been treated not only to just a Sunflower State rivalry, but also to a game that features extra innings. Jody Epperson, Gabby Scott, Brooklyn Levonick, the 3 coming up for Wichita State. Katie Brooks came in to replace Bruno, and it's been nothing but gas for her ever since she has stepped foot inside the circle. You can see why she has over 200 strikeouts in her softball career. Glad we had a chance to see her, though. When she was put down as a starter, I was thinking, all right, here we go. And then it ended up being Bruno. But glad we get a chance to see her. And Jody Epperson really had no chance with that at-bat. Swings and strikes out as Katie Brooks brings the heat. And it's really a perfect compliment, because we saw how effective Olivia Bruno was. Really relied on the off-speed. Brooks is saying, no, we're not doing that. We're just going to go ahead and bring it 65 to 70 consistently.
Yeah, and the ball has a great amount of movement on it. So you pair that with the speed. I mean, she's just blowing it past them.
2 appearances against Oklahoma State. One was a win, one was a loss. Scott with a check swing. They're not going to appeal. Against Oklahoma State in that victory, ended up going the distance. Surrendered 6 hits. Gave up 2 runs, both of them earned. Strikeout-wise, had 2. And that's the thing with Brooks. You look at how many strikeouts that she has. She's sitting with 39, which doesn't seem like a whole heck of a lot. But just looking at how she's throwing today, mercy. Kansas has been dialed in. Scott taps that one foul. And that's really been the story for Kansas this year. They have used multiple arms. Hasn't just been Katie Brooks and Olivia Bruno. They have really mixed it up with some different pitchers this season. Scott puts it in play and dribbles it by a diving second baseman. Gabby Scott, the freshman, with her first hit of the day. It's a 1-out single in the 8th.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen too much from Scott at the plate, and this was the perfect time to come through for the Shockers.
So one freshman comes up with a hit. Brooklyn Levonick last time she was at the plate. Back in the 7th. She had a one-out single herself. And then she was replaced by Caroline Talent as a pinch runner. Back to Kansas with the pitching. Kansas has really relied on 5 different pitchers. You look at Wichita State, and you have Alex Aguilar, you have Chloe Barber, you have Ava Sliger, you have Riley Neihart. But Kansas has really gone to all 5 of its pitchers. All 5 have thrown at least 42 and 2/3 innings. They really rely on balance as a pitching unit. And with Brooks coming in relief, just goes to show you she doesn't have to just be the starter all the time, although the majority of her appearances have been to start games. But for today, appearance number 22, this is the 8th game in which she came in relief. 0-2 Levonic was tempted, but didn't fully go through. It's 1-2. Brooks searching for the outside. Does not get the call. 2-2. What a moment for Brooklyn Levonic as well as Gabby Scott. Put in pressured situations here for Wichita State as true freshman. 2-2 Levonic ends up slicing a foul. And that's the thing for Wichita State moving forward. You look at the lineup, you'll definitely miss Ellie Eck and Lauren Lucas, Cameron Compton, Kristen Nelson, Caroline Talent. You got a good core that is set to return. 2-2 is downstairs, and the counter's now full. I know there were high hopes this year. Preseason pick to win the American Athletic Conference. But really, you could have selected 4 teams, put them in a hat, and they could have drawn one out. You would have been surprised by the result.
And Levonic and Brooks are just battling it out this at-bat.
It's been a good battle. Levonic trying to deliver with 1 down. Three-two inside corner. She freezes up Levonic. Second out of the inning via the K.
Yeah, that's a beautiful pitch. Nothing really more to say there.
Now it looks like Coach Christy Bredbender would like to have another conversation here for Sammy Hood. Going through all the different possibilities. Sammy today over. Reached on a fielder's choice back in the 7th. Ended up coming around to score. Off a bases loaded walk. 2 away for the junior. Goes right after the first one and grazes it. Sammy Hood with 26 runs batted in. If she can make a 27, it would actually have to be 28 probably if she really gets a hold of one and goes over the yard. She does possess that power. Has 8 home runs this year for Wichita State. Getting closer and closer to 20 in her career. Had 7 as a freshman, only 2 last year, but 8 for this season. Last year, though, dealing with a little bit of a nagging injury, hence why she didn't have quite the power like she did as a freshman. 1-2. Hood just throws the barrel at the ball just to try to hang in there and see another pitch for Wichita State. Hood, once again, just protecting that plate. Really nothing that she can really drive, just more so just trying to get a piece of that ball as much as she can.
And it's good to see as many pitches as you can to really get that timing down, especially with that shift from Bruno to Brooks.
Well, Brooks instead, it goes for the outside corner. Sammy Hood swings through. 3 strikeouts in the 8th for Katie Brooks. We go to the 9th, tied at 3. One more inning. That's what the fans want. Extra innings is what they have received as we get ready for inning number 9. Lighted up at 3-all. For those just joining us, Kansas grabbed a 1-0 lead in the second. It was a leadoff solo home run for Olivia Bruno. Couple innings later in the 4th, Cameron Compton drives one to the left for a solo blast. In the 6th, top half, as we see the first pitch swung on and hit to the right side. Anna Souls with her second base hit. That's back-to-back leadoff singles for the Kansas Jayhawks. Had a single in the 8th and now a single here in the 9th. In the 6th, Kansas scored 2 off an error. And then Wichita State would get 2 back-to-back bases loaded walks to send us into extras. We have a pinch runner coming in, and Maddie Hayes, used to the American Athletic Conference, was at UTSA last year. We also have a pinch hitter, Emma Tatum. Shows bunt, pulls back. Doesn't go as a strike. For Emma Tatum, junior from Texas, at bat number 61 for her. That's 12 hits. They're going to throw over the second. The throw looked like it was potentially there. Sammy Hood's going to look over at the umpire, the double check. Pretty close, but swiping second base is Maddie Hayes. She had a little bit of fire after the fact, too. And they are going to take a look at this one. Well, this is our second review on an attempted steal. The first one went in favor of Wichita State, as Kristen Nelson was able to slide in safely. Let's see if Hayes did the same. Just depends on where the tag is applied, because at that look, you look at the glove and the ball being covered up on the slide. Looked like that she got in there just in time. Half a second early. Yeah, and then afterward you saw that little reaction. That's what I was referring to. Close game, obviously. Being tied up, it's extras. It's a blue glove. Looks like it's in there before the tag. Tag wasn't applied until the hip. And to me, that would be a successful stolen base for Maddie Hayes. It looked like when Gabby Scott got the ball, looks like she held on to it for just a moment. And that split second might have made the difference between an out and a stolen. That would be stolen base number 10 for Hayes if it stands. So one thing she does well, has that speed. Only 5 at-bats, but she has scored 10 times. If she can make it 11, then Kansas will have the lead for the 3rd time tonight. Here comes the crew to rule safe, at least that would be my assumption. And that is the case. So the job was done successfully for Hayes to get over to second base. And that allows Emma Tatum to try to bring in the go-ahead run. Sitting with 16 runs batted in. Still going to show a bunt, and this one does get by Gabby Scott, and that allows Hayes to get a little bit closer. And with nobody down here in the top of the 9th, it's a prime opportunity for Kansas to jump ahead. And now we'll see how Neihart chooses to play this one. Tatum still being instructed to lay down the bunt. I guess if you do it successfully, you have a chance to potentially do the squeeze situation here.
Yeah, definitely a situation that KU wants to be in with, you know, a runner on third, no down. It's definitely something they can capitalize on.
Three balls, 2 strikes as Neihart is unable to get that one over the plate, although trying to just get her to potentially maybe ground it out that way to apply maybe a potential tag if Hayes was wanting to actually go to home plate. (3-2). Neihart freezes up Emma Tatum. 3rd K for the freshman in relief. First out registered here in the top of the 9th.
Working that corner like she always does.
Awfully good at that. Not going to need one of those players that will really blow it by you, but boy, does she frame it up perfectly to get players to strike out while looking. Let's see if she can do it again. Natalie Marshall was 0 for 3. Grounded out in the 3rd to second base. Grounded out to 3rd base in the 5th, and then popped up to right field in inning number 7. Marshall in the gap, and that puts Kansas on top. Marshall rounding first and sliding in safely. Marshall coming up with the big knock for KU. Her 7th run batted in and makes it a 4-3 Kansas lead. And now Natalie Marshall will be rewarded. She'll make the trot over to the dugout for the 2nd pinch runner, and Bailey Weber. Another Kansan getting a little bit of action in this game. Former Timberwolf of Blue Valley Southwest. Still just 1 down in the top of the 9th. 4-3 Kansas. Caden Stafford went after the first one. Doesn't get anything. 0 for 2 in this one. Grounded out to third in the third inning. Line out to left in the seventh, but she does have a run scored. September Flanagan gone on, and then Stafford re-entered to take her spot over at first base and came around to score one of the 2 runs on the error for Wichita State. Nyhart goes outside, makes a 1 ball, 2 strikes. Stafford last year, primarily just a pinch runner. This year, she's had a little bit of that, but getting some more opportunities at the dish. 1-2 gets jammed. Nyhart wants it, and she runs Ryan the Scott, but she does get the catch, but it could have been problematic. Nyhart has it, though, 2 down.
Typically, we would not want a pitcher taking any ball that they don't have to, but seemed like Nyhart had a different story there. She said, no, I'm going to take this from you. I don't care. We're getting these outs.
I was just going to say, what's the policy there for the coaching staff? I have a feeling that's not the direction that they want to go in. But Nyhart was drifting that way, momentum carrying her that way, so she thought, you know what? I'm in position. Although Gabby Scott would have been a tough play probably for her. Nelson was also coming in as well, but good for Nyhart to at least get the second one here at the top of the ninth. Try to slow down Limbaugh, who just throws the bat at the ball, and it ends up dropping. The throw's not there, and Kansas now leads by 2. Limbaugh with the RBI single. She did what a slapper does.
Yeah, just drops right in the gap, right in the hole.
Now at the plate, Ainsley Linda.
Probably not great that Eck was a little bit off of her balance right there, so she didn't have a great position to throw home if necessary.
You had Marshall drive in her 7th run for this season. Limbaugh, that was RBI number 12 for the top of the lineup hitter for Kansas. Nyhart getting the call there, facing Ainsley Linduff. And Linduff with a couple of sacrifice bunts last 2 times. One worked out well in the 6th. 8th inning, not so much. Not her fault, though. She did the right thing by successfully putting out 2 bunts. Two one. Slices that one foul. In fact, for sacrifice bunts, she actually finished 5th in the Big 12 in sack bunts a season ago with 6 of them. Started in all 52 games she played in.
People always seem to knock a sacrifice bunt because it doesn't do anything for the hitter's batting average, but it is so crucial to get down those bunts.
2-2 lifted up. Eck able to track it down. However, KU makes it a 2-run lead again, courtesy of Natalie Marshall and Presley Limbaugh. Time today, Kansas has the advantage. The previous 2, Wichita State came back to tie it. Can Kansas finally finish the job, bottom half of the 9th? Dealing with hitters 9, 1, and 2. Katie Brooks still in there for Kansas, replacing Olivia Bruno. Kristen Nelson. She could have been the final out of the game back in the 7th. Grounded one over to short. And then the throw was a little bit off to first. Bounced off the glove of Souls. And that allowed Wichita State to stay alive. Nelson taps it foul. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Walked back in the 3rd. Grounded out to first in inning number 5. And then the error in the 7th. One of 5 seniors that was celebrated during senior weekend. Although it was senior weekend, they knew there was one more chance to play at Wilkins Stadium. Looks like Kristen Nelson's trying to plead her case, saying, didn't my bat hit the glove of the catcher and Marshall? Wouldn't that be obstruction, catcher interference? On play and umpired. Jason Kemper says no dice. 2-2 inside corner, and that goes as a strike. And Nelson with a little stare down following that one, as Katie Brooks has come in relief and has done nothing but strike people out. That's 4.
On top of the card for the Shockers, Ellie Eck.
Brooks came in and got the final out of the 7th, and then in the 8th struck out 3 of the 4 batters that she faced, and then starting up the 9th with a K. Two balls, no strikes to Ellie Eck, who has walked twice. Walked back in the 3rd. Also did that in the 7th. .30 count to Ellie Eck. Has really provided power. 10 of their last 11 home runs have come since the March 26th game against number 2 Oklahoma. And here she is, drawing walk number 3 for tonight. And that gives an opportunity, a Shockers team that had 15 home runs last week, have a chance to maybe get a hold of one to tie it up with a home run, with Lauren Lucas coming to the plate. So the threat is still very much there. Something for Katie Brooks to deal with. Lucas thought about going after a high one, held back.
You can just see the intensity on their faces. They all want to win. I mean, like we've mentioned so many times, the in-state rivalry is so apparent in this game. And Brooks, she's coming with some fight. I mean, she's throwing nothing but heat. And Wichita State is just trying to battle back.
Lauren Lucas 0 for 3, walked back in the 7th. Her drawing a walk allowed Wichita State to get a run on the board. 2-1. Ends up going foul, bouncing off the building. Even if Lauren Lucas were to go down here, Wichita State does have Taylor Solachik and then Cameron Compton if they were to get to that point. So the heart of the lineup here to do some damage. And Lucas continues to fight off the pitches. Lucas currently number 2 in a Shocker uniform in batting average. Missed all of last year, but here she is in her senior campaign with a chance to keep things rolling. Instead, she goes down via the K. Brooks with another strikeout. 5 strikeouts for Brooks. And Kansas is 1 out away from getting the victory.
for Wichita State.
You get an elevated ball from Brooks with that type of speed. That's such a tempting pitch. Just job well done by Brooks.
With Brooks getting that strikeout, 5 Ks. That's the most for her since the Baylor game back on March 7th. Good framework for Marshall to get the call there. 1 ball, 1 strike. Taylor Solacek singled in the 6th. Drew a walk in the 7th. 1-1, she thought about it. Brooks continues to be dialed in, and here she is, just a moment away from coming in and getting the job done for Kansas. The 1-2, Solacek holds back. Quick appeal, did not go around. If there was one player that could really deliver, here is Solacek, 8th all-time with home runs in a shocker career, the 2-2. Job well done for Marshall to block it. Solacek, though, we'll see one more pitch at the very least here. 3-2, Solacek smashes it the right. Eck speeding all the way to the 3rd. And Solacek brings a run a little bit closer with her 2nd hit for the ball game. Nice piece of hitting for Taylor Solacek. Didn't try to force the issue. Just wanting to give an opportunity for Cameron Compton.
The fight in these two teams is just crazy tonight.
It has felt like a heavyweight bout from the get-go. Shockers with 26 wins. Jayhawks with 21. Shockers coming off a series win against Charlotte. Meanwhile, Kansas coming off its 1st ranked win of the season against Oklahoma State. Pressure about to be ratcheted up even more here for Cameron Compton. She tied the game back in the 4th. There was a leadoff solo homer in the 4th to make it a 1-all ball game. Brooks steals and gets the call for strike 1. Runners on the corners for Wichita State. 2-run game. Brooks took something off that one, got it down to 59 miles per hour. She had been consistently around 67, 68, according to the gun that we see here. Has consistently brought the heat. 1-1 high and outside. Really hasn't given Wichita State much to really elevate to try to drive it out of the park. 2-1, Compton goes after that one, but there's Limbaugh for the snag, and Kansas outlasts Wichita State's 5-3 W in 9 innings. We'll come back to recap it all from Wilkins Stadium.